Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. I had to get my microphone set up because I realized just after I hit the button that my microphone was just a little too far away. Welcome to another episode 39. Wow, it's just been doing this a while, and I can't wait till we get to the crazy high numbers and be like, remember back when we did episode 67? I dig that. I love the idea of what I'm doing here, and I hope that you guys enjoy it too, and that you are spreading the word and telling your friends. And I know I throw links up to individual videos places every once in a while because someone will say something on Facebook and go, it's like it's just a perfect segue into remember that one time that I talked about that one thing? And there we go. So, so let me take a drink of my coffee. Today has definitely been a coffee day. The last couple nights have been very weird sleep-wise for Bryan. So yeah, just a kind of crazy couple of days. Let's see. Before we get into everything of the episode itself, the week in Bryan, the life of Bryan. It's been a good week. I had some awesome time with my kids this weekend. Got to hang out with my friends. It's just been kind of generally a slow week. Nothing crazy, like I'm not pulling my hair out or anything. But it's just been good. I'm in a good place, mentally and emotionally, I suppose. Had a breakthrough on. The last couple episodes, I've spent a lot of time talking about the Transformers, which I did promise you guys during the Hobby Rig episode that I hopefully would have my Autobots done by today. They are almost done. All I've got to do is do the Autobot symbol on Mr. Optimus Prime here and Bumblebee. And then do the flocking on their bases to kind of give them that kind of asphalt look. But I did get Cliffjumper done. I'm not sure why I focused on Cliffjumper. I just, I guess he spoke to me. But I am really proud if I can get in there and show you. I don't know if it'll focus on him well enough. I don't know. But as a painter, I know that a lot of people use decals or artist pens and things, and I don't know. I've always been weird about doing things like that. So I am freehanding all of my Autobot and Decepticon symbols on my Transformers. And I must say, I wish I could. Maybe I could get real close. It's not gonna focus on you. Oh, wait. Come on. Give me focus. Hold my arm still a little. Come on. Get to the spot that sweet spot where it shows all of your Autobot love. No. Oh. Bam. I'm super proud of my freehand Autobot symbol. Okay, now it's gotta say, find me, focus bot. Find me. There we go. I'm super proud of my freehand Autobot symbol. I can, and hopefully that will continue to do awesome insignias in the future. But I didn't get them completely done. I had real work that I had to do, since the Transformer things are not yet real work. But I did want to show you my progress on them because they're cool, and I can't wait to jump in and do more. But one of the things that I did get to do on my own time, so I had mentioned before that I had a Transformer rule set on my computer that was mostly done, that just needed to kind of be polished. Well, I took a couple hours on Saturday and Sunday last week and got them done. So I've got rules for Optimus, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Megatron, Starscream, Skywarp, and Thundercracker. Basically, everybody who has models currently out of that WizKids Deep Cut series, I made rules for. And so I'm super excited that once I get everybody painted and get a little more terrain and finish up on the objective markers and whatnot, I will be able to record a playtest game, basically a game of, hey, look how much fun this is, and then we'll send it off to WizKids and see if they bite, throw some chum in the water, so to speak. And if they don't, and they say, yeah, sorry, we're not interested, then I have got an awesome game that me and my friends can play, and I can play for, just for fun at shows and whatnot, and we'll go from there. Have a good time either way. It's all about making smiles. But yeah, this week has been a lot of work, a lot of gearing up for. I've got a very important meeting with my crafty guys next week, and it's a funny story. I was a little concerned. My employers over at Big Child have put out a couple of really cool books and a brand new bust that just came out. That gorgeous as always, but. I was a little worried because my boss, I couldn't get a hold of him about some business stuff. I was, trying to reach him about some relatively important business things that I'm trying to get lined up for 2020. And finally, one of his coworkers there in the Madrid office, got in touch with me and was like, "Oh, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jose's on paternity leave." As an American, I forgot that there are companies out there that are awesome enough to give dads paternity leave, and a lot of European healthcare and stuff like that does that. So in Spain, he gets several weeks off to help the mom and get make a bond with the child, and it's awesome. But that was the reason why he wasn't getting in touch with me, and I grabbed all the emails that I had sent to him and sent to his partner and was like, "Hey, so my bad. I totally forgot that he was getting ready to have a kid, and now he is. So Jose, if you watch these, congratulations, and we'll talk to you when you get back. But this American was a goofball and didn't realize that you were off work, so I apologize for bugging the crap out of you. But yeah, other than that, it's been just kind of a solid week. Good all around. Nothing tragic happens. I'm over my chest cold finally. That I'm not really, unless I get into a deep laughing bit. I'm not really coughing all that much. It's just been solid. It's been good. We got a lot of work on my Transformer stuff. Got to help hopefully help my son narrow down what he's going to do for his science experiment for the science fair. It's just good. It's just a good week. Which I thought would be funny to end this week with an episode that I had mentioned last week, that there has been a lot of stuff happening collectively in the world of fandom. Whether you are a Marvel fan or a DC fan or a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan, or a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, or a Serenity/Firefly fan, there's just all kinds of stuff. This is the season where all the rumors start to creep out, all the new movies. It's like, oh hey, this is happening, right around the corner. All of this stuff is starting to hit home, and it was kind of collectively, a bow was placed on this topic and rose to the top of my oh hey, I have to I have to do this because of a situation slash circumstance that happened last week with the collective fan base of Dungeons and Dragons slash Critical Role, which we'll get to that in the episode itself. But without further ado, the T-shirt that inspired me partially to do this episode, or at least have my ears open for all the news that will make this episode a thing, from our dear friends in Armor Class 10, it would be the "I'm a leaf on the wind, watch how I..." So, little bit of a spoiler if you are a Firefly fan, Firefly slash Serenity fan, which I am not. It is not to say that I am against it, that I take some kind of stance that's, oh, it shouldn't exist, or anything along those lines. I don't hate it. I merely find it extremely mediocre sci-fi. Half the stuff on Netflix that only lasts 2 seasons, I put it in that same category. Nothing special about it at all. But there is a scene in that fandom that has been touted as one of the most shocking kills, unexpected deaths, and the writer has even been kind of dragged across the coals of all you're trying to do is be like George R.R. Martin and just kill people off unnecessarily. And this shirt basically highlights that. There I go, laughing. Basically highlights that moment where a lot of die-hard browncoats, I think is what they're called, die-hard Firefly fans just lost their minds, tears, screaming at the wall, gnashing of teeth. Those of us who watched all of it and was like, whatever, it's sci-fi. It was a shock. It was a shock to see something like that happen. But in all honesty, that moments like that are the only things that I remember about that show, because it was, well, basic. Which I'm sure is going to take off a lot of my fans, because the Firefly people are really they're very staunch in their beliefs, which brings us to our topic of the week. And what did I officially word it as? What was the official wording? I was like fandoms for good or for evil, or for good or evil, or some, the power of fandom for good or evil. I don't know. I don't remember what I titled it initially. But basically the gist is, we are, as humans, and especially as humans that put so much faith in the creativity, the creations of others, whether we're gamers or comic book fans or movie fans or whatever, we tend to be very hyperbolic about our beliefs, about what we stand behind, what we think is cool. It is very rare that you find someone like us, a nerd, a geek, a dork, whatever, who just is sort of meh about everything. They will likely have something, whether it is, a little hidden gem, but they have something. They've got that hill that they'll die on. And as of late, we have seen both the strength. I gotta itch my eyeball. We have seen both the strength and the beneficial power of fandom, and really sort of its rotten underbelly. We've seen them both very, very, very recently. We have seen in the last year several television shows that have gotten canceled by their various networks or whatever, and resurrected by just like the sheer power, like the sheer volume and attention of the Twitterverse, of was it change.org, the one that you can put the insert your own signature thing. I don't remember exactly what it is. But there are websites out there dedicated for you to make your own. Hey, sign my petition. There are several. Let's see. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was about to be canceled and got brought back on for not one, but I believe 3 seasons. Lucifer as a TV show, amazing TV show that Fox dropped, and Netflix, through just sheer fan power, Netflix saw this as an opportunity and they picked it up for a 5th season. What was it? It was the Hulu ones, but was it New Mutants? No, Runaways. Runaways was able to finish out a season that they were not expecting to be able to, and it sounds like a much belated New Mutants movie with almost a horror feel is coming out around the corner. That initially, I believe everyone thought that wasn't going to happen, but like the fans perked up and they said, "Hey, oh my God, this is going to be amazing." There's a lot of power behind our collective voices. Sadly, we use it often to fight with one another. But the Disney Plus, through hopefully listening to their people, we're getting a 7th and final season of the Clone Wars cartoon, which is a fantastic cartoon, despite one of the characters being so horrendously and I don't understand why so popular coming out of it. But it's getting a 7th season, and Disney is really kind of clinging to the canon on these, to the point where phone app games have characters that sprout specifically from that cartoon. There are memes based around scenes from those cartoons. The Fantasy Flight Star Wars Legion miniatures games, hits close to us. There are characters in that, characters and vehicles and things in that would never have existed if it weren't for the Cartoon Network or the Disney Plus or the Disney cartoon show. And that's the power of showing these companies, oh my God, I love what you create. Last year I mentioned that the D&D Twitch show, Critical Role, headlined by Matt Mercer, it managed to kickstart and crowdfund was just over $11 million, when initially all they wanted was one cartoon, one hour long cartoon special, and they're end up getting an entire series on Amazon Prime because of the exposure, because the fans spoke up and said, "This sounds awesome." And these are the things that I think that we as fans, we as people, forget that when we say, "Oh my God, I love a thing," even if we are being hyperbolic and we might only just like it, but in that exact moment we love it, we're spreading that knowledge. We're spreading it to other people that they might, whether or not they have an opinion, they will add that little mental hash mark, boop, as, you know what, there's at least one person that I'd listen to that likes this. Maybe I missed something, or maybe when I go see it this first time, I'll have this subconscious tally of all of the hash marks of all the people that said, "Oh my God, they loved it," and I go into the theater and my brain might be just a little bit queued up to be like, all right, this is gonna be amazing. You trust all those people to talk to you. You trust all those people to be part of your life in other situations. Maybe you can trust what they think about on this topic, even just a tiny little bit. And then you go in and you're I don't want to say predisposed, but you're predisposed toward liking it. But there will be, you can't shut it off. There will be a little bit of that echo back there that says, hey, all these guys liked it. I hope I like it too. Maybe I should like it too. I'll look for things to like. You might be a little more receptive to it. But again, this is what. So one of my favorite TV shows on TV right now is called The Magicians, and The Magicians on Sci-Fi. Initially, the first time I tried to watch it, they're going into season 5 right now. The first time I tried to watch it was way back when it first came out. I was in a very bad place. I was going through the rockiest parts of my divorce. I was being forced to spend time with people who, or forced to spend time with people who were interacting with, in my opinion, walking poison people. And it was a very rough time of my life, and I tried to watch this show. And I got a few episodes in, and I was like, "Oh, how terrible is this? I can't stand it. I don't want to get into it." And I shut myself off to it. Fast forward a couple of years, and one of my best friends in the whole world, Nick, and his then girlfriend, now wife, mentioned that they watch it. And I'm like, I don't know, I hate it, because at that point in my head, I got it stuck in my head after 3 episodes that it was awful, I hate it, and I got it. He basically was like, well, why don't you give it another shot? This last season was really good. Maybe you got to get past the parts you don't like. And I dove back in, and even the episodes that I remember not liking, that second time, because I was in a better headspace, I was in a better kind of frame of mind, and a very trusted soul of that's close to me at the time is telling me, dude, this is really good. You should give it a shot. I got around to it, and now it is easily one of the best shows that I think is on television, and that's kind of the power that I believe fandoms have, is the more people that love something, or the more people that tell you something is bad, there's that subconscious weight that pushes on you, and it pushes on the companies that make it, and it pushes on the actors. These last couple of years, things have been real hard on actors that are in very powerful big movies. Some of the actors from movies, as widely loved franchise as Star Wars is, so many of its fans are just hateful, and they pushed off an actress, a fine actress. She does great with what she's given. I've seen her in things that I'm like, okay, she did a good job, but they pushed the actress that played Rose Tycho off of social media because they were so mean to her and so vicious about a character in their fandom. And here's the thing, I might not have liked what the character had to do, or what maybe the character interjected in what I would have seen as a better way of handling things. But it doesn't mean that I should, tell the actress that, she should die and stay out of Star Wars. That's ridiculous. That's so silly. And the problem is that as things get more venomous and more toxic, with the people who believe that they're standing up for the brand, or they're standing up for their fandom, they create an even bigger schism, because it creates a group of people who then their existence is to fight the existence of the other one. Instead of just being an anomaly and be like, oh, those fans suck and they were really mean to Kelly Tran, they now have created a battlefield where defenders of the other side now come forward and start firing their slings and arrows back. And all that does is that it creates a very poisonous atmosphere. It creates an area where it is hard to be a fan of the franchise, because anywhere you go or anywhere you want to talk about these things, you end up on one side or the other of this awful fandom civil war. Whereas, because me personally, I think Kelly Tran's fine. I thought Rose Tycho was kind of a waste of a character, both in episode 8 and 9. But I also think that not everybody should have a starring role, and not everybody should have all of the limelight, especially if the only reason you're going to limelight them is because you have like you have like a gimmick up your sleeve. You already have something that, you know, another actor or actress can't do for whatever reason. And I think that the problem is that some of these people are in the fandoms are so outspoken and so loudmouthed about why they hate X that if you might say, well, yeah, I'm not really fond of X, you automatically like lumped into that group of, oh, you didn't like Rose Tycho? Oh, you hate women. You hate Asian Americans. And you think they have no room in Star Wars. And that's ridiculous. You know, I personally cannot, if you've watched the show, you know, I personally cannot stand Deadpool as a character because of where his fandom and Marvel took him after his initial launch. Initially, Deadpool was he was just a teleporting killing machine that was basically a tongue-in-cheek reference to Deathstroke, you know, from DC Comics, which is why their costumes look alike, and why they're both mercenaries with swords and guns, and why they're both first name ends with ADE, goes into Wilson. You know, like, it's just, there's so much stuff there. But the initial character that they created, I thought he was just fine. I thought it was cool. He showed up in X-Force, and he did a bunch of nasty things, and you knew that he was going to come back and, you know, haunt Cable at some point, you know, in some fashion. And then, a few years later, somewhere along the lines, someone decided to turn him into basically an immortal, an unkillable version of, like, Spider-Man, who tells jokes all the time and makes snide comments and, you know, shoots himself in the head because he can. You know, and breaks the fourth wall over the place. Just a bunch of dumb things that, because I'm not the audience, I'm not the one that they're shooting for, that they're aiming for, it made me dislike the character. Like, I was like, oh god, every time I see Deadpool now, I'm like, great, this character's terrible. And because he rose so fast in popularity with a particular demographic, that you started seeing him everywhere. Deadpool in the X-Men, Deadpool versus Fantastic Four, Deadpool this, Deadpool that, Deadpool. Now, fast forward several years, because it's easy in a comic book world for me to ignore him. If I see him on the cover, if I see that he's part of a plot line, I ignore it. I just don't read it. You know, I don't need his, you know, puerile humor and ridiculously overpowered lack of challenge to poison an otherwise good comic book story. So I just ignore them. Fast forward a couple years, and then now suddenly we hear he's getting his own movie. R-rated movie, full tilt. Ryan Reynolds is in charge of doing crazy stuff. And while I admit Ryan Reynolds did an amazing job in that movie playing the character he was given, I still hate that character. But I understand why other people might enjoy him. And I think that's the biggest difference, that where fandom, where the power of fandom shifts, is that if I am a fan of something, or if I'm a fan of one particular type of something, and I know that the other type of something exists, and I can basically step back and go, you know what, I don't care about fandom B. Fandom A is where it's at for me, and so long as nobody tells me that I have to go along with B, then we're good. Then we coexist, and I avoid fandom B, and fandom B probably avoids fandom A, and we move on. Where I run into the issue is where someone tells me that your opinion is just wrong. Because again, it is your opinion. Now, your opinion can be wrong if it is based in fact. Like, I can say I only have 4 fingers, but I have more. You know, like, that's not an opinion. That's just a misinformed fact or incorrect fact or a lie. And when you're talking about matters of creativity and matters of art and matters of I like this, I believe this, then it's real hard to try and look at somebody and go, you're wrong, this is terrible. Case in point, I have some very cool Suicide Squad. I have a Joker, Jared Leto Joker Suicide Squad figure, plus his counterpart Harley Quinn up there on my wall. And a lot of people are very, there is no denying it. I am an unapologetic, staunch fanboy of the DC comic universe, cartoon universe, TV universe, movie universe. Pretty much where the DC goes, I will follow. And yeah, there's a couple things that I might not like, but generally speaking, I have loved just about all of the mass media stuff that has come out for it. Hang on a second. Even the screwed up version of Justice League that came out because Joss Whedon stuck his fingers in too deep, I enjoy it. I know that it would have been better if Zack would have been able to finish, his vision, but I still enjoyed it. And Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, these movies, especially amongst people who had their own. Hang on, my Kylo Ren, my another divisive fandom, the Star Wars folks. My Kylo Ren saber almost fell over and took out my Transformers. But yeah, the people that were like, well, this isn't, this Superman isn't Christopher Reeves. I hate it. I hate this darker version of Superman. Or Superman never kills anybody. Or Batman doesn't kill anybody. Or Batman doesn't use guns. All of these things that are given to us as statements, as facts, because in their fandom, in their world, it's truth to them, and it's because they've limited themselves in scope as to what they read and what they believe and what they say. Well, this is canon and this isn't canon, and this, no one pays attention to the old 1950s comics anymore, except for the fact that by just sheer the matter that they exist, they do. So when someone like Zack Snyder makes a movie and draws heavily upon one particular set of comics or graphic novels, and draws heavily upon individual moments in a character's history that don't necessarily coincide with what you've focused on, it doesn't make Zack wrong. It doesn't make the movie, it's awful because they did this. It means you didn't like it. You wanted it different. You would have done something differently. I am the same way about some of the X-Men movies, like Days of Future Past and Age of Apocalypse. Those movies I've watched because I enjoyed the comic series they're based on. I love X-Men. I think X-Men are sweet, and I watched these. And my initial knee-jerk reaction is, these are all wrong and horrible. And that is that sort of hyperbolic, reactionary fandom part that I was talking about, is because it wasn't the comics that I wanted and it wasn't the movie that I wanted. Well, then not only was it bad for me, but I want to make sure that other people know that it was bad for me, and it should be bad for them too, because I want the people making this movie, I want them to know that they shouldn't do it like that again. They should do the right thing. And I expect here very shortly, when Dune, the new version of Dune, comes out with Jason Momoa and the rest, that we're going to get a lot of people that are going to, just boycott this movie because, it's not the David Lynch movie. Or, I read the book twice a year, every year, and I saw in one of the trailers that the ornithopter looks wrong. Well, they can't get the ornithopter right. I'm not going to even look at it. That's the negative part of fandom, is that you get so stuck in your conception, this is my vision, and anything else is just wrong. I freely admit, I have been guilty of this in lots of cases. That when something changes drastically, or a new version of a movie comes out, or a new character comes out, and it changes everything, that my first reaction is, why would someone let you do that? You're changing what we love for no reason. Which probably is not for no reason. There's probably a reason for it. There's probably, stuff down the road that we don't know about. There's probably, storyboards for the next sequel. And that is really kind of what I was talking about, is the negative power of fandom, is that you could stop a creation from happening just because your perception of it is that you didn't like it. What about all the millions of people out there that would like it? I mean, I am not a fan of Brussels sprouts. I've had them a couple of different ways. Generally speaking, not a fan of Brussels sprouts. That does not mean that I don't want anyone else never to eat them, and then the crops should get thrown out or never planted again. But I do probably want people to know, if someone invited me over to their house and was like, hey, we're going to have Brussels sprouts, I'm probably going to let them know, no, I don't want them. And until I am shown otherwise, I will just avoid that. And that is, I kind of think, is the same way the power of fandom works. Is that, let's scroll back a little bit. I talked about my Kylo saber, that episode 8... The Last Jedi, a divisive movie, to say the least. It tore that fandom pretty much down the middle. There were people who thought Last Jedi were good, and there were people who thought Last Jedi were terrible. There were very few people out there that thought Last Jedi just was another Star Wars movie, because it really didn't feel that way. Rian Johnson did a very good job of creating something completely unique, completely off the rails, and in doing so, he polarized two groups within the Star Wars fandom. He polarized the people who believe that you need to, stick with existing canon, that you need to, I bumped my table. A little bit of earthquake there. That you have to stick with existing canon and ideas and build off of it, build using the blocks that you have been given, and augment with your own blocks. Similar to what the Mandalorian series on Disney Plus is doing now. And then there was the camp of, oh God, don't just give us another rehash of what we've already known. I want something new. Give me something completely new and different. And then those people were the ones that were like, Last Jedi is amazing. It's nothing like anything we've ever seen before, and you can't shake me. It's the best thing ever. And if they change it again in episode 9, that those people should be flogged and beaten with chain whips. Well, episode 9 has since come and gone, and one of the things that I thought that it might do is that it might make episode 8 better. That it might kind of retroactively, since it explained a few things, that if I go back and watch episode 8, that there are a few things that will pop up that I can go, you know what? Now that makes a little more sense. I'm okay with it. Now, having since watched episode 8 one more time after seeing episode 9, in my opinion, it does not do that. All it did was make me more frustrated that J.J. Abrams did not do episode 8. But again, that's my part of the fandom. That's my part of the toxicity, is that when someone looks at me and, you know, says The Last Jedi was a masterpiece, I have the hardest time, even if they're a stranger, not calling them out and being like, how the hell can you say that? Because in my mind and in my world, it's so far from that those people sound like crazy people. And at the end of the day, it's all our opinions. You know, completely, it's just based off of our opinions. So, I mentioned toward the beginning of the video, I'll take another drink of my lemonade. Lemonade, the cool, refreshing drink. That, very recently, there was a thing that happened between fandoms, where really kind of highlighted my views on the cult of personality that sometimes follows people around, follows fandoms around. So 2 weeks ago, last week, I don't remember, the Wizards of the Coast announced their next big book. And their next big book is the Wanderer's Guide to the Casmame, or I don't know. It's basically the world, the part of the Critical Role world. And immediately I went to the various gamer forums and was like, oh man, let's see what people had to say. See, before I get any further, I will let you know that I am kind of ambivalent when it comes to Critical Role. I love what they've done for the industry, and I love what they've done for exposure for D&D and kind of normalizing it in certain cases. I do not like what it has done to a lot of the player base. There are a lot of people that believe that every game out there should be run with a $2,500 production budget and professional voice actors, whereas some DMs just can't do that. You know, you go to a convention, you play under Dungeon Master that might not be able to do those things. The last thing that person wants to hear is, well, you know, this game was a lot of fun, but it wasn't like Critical Role. And I guess my big thing here, and this is my takeaway when it comes to Critical Role, is people need to remember that is a TV show with production company and staff and professional actors that are gamers. And while it is very cool to watch their story and watch them play, you know, and kind of through them feel like, man, I wish I was in an epic game like that. You can be. But it is also, you have to remember that those guys, they are basically using hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of equipment and mics and multiple angled cameras and cameramen and post-production staff, and you know, there's a lot of production that goes into a show like that you can't blame your local guy or your local DM. You can't blame them because they can't create a Critical Role atmosphere like that. That costs serious money, and a lot of people do not have that money just lying around for you to use as as part of your dungeon mastering. So again, I admire what Matt and Critical Role has done for D&D. It really has opened a lot of people's eyes and a lot of people's hearts to the idea of role-playing. I just wish that it did not create such a Critical Role or bust mentality in so many of their fans. Which brings us to what happened after this book released. This book released, or at least was announced, and the role-playing game forums and the various news groups and things just went wild with people. Like, anytime you had that kind of fan responses, I would say it was probably about 60-40 or 70-30 people who were mad that this Twitch show world is getting a book instead of, any of the worlds that we know that need updated to 5th ed, or a brand new world that isn't, something that we've seen part of on a TV show. And then there were the people who were like, oh my gosh, it's Critical Role, I love it, I love it, I love it, give me more. And somewhere along the lines, I don't know the specifics, is Matt Mercer, he either tweeted or said it on an interview or put it on his Facebook or whatever. I don't know exactly where it came from, but basically admitted that this book is a labor of love and that he's glad that a lot of people are excited about it, and that, hopefully that, when people get it, that it will be amazing, because he had been working on it for 18 months. Well, one thing that a lot of people, that's a long time to work on a book. It really is. As someone who writes books for a living, that's a long time to work on a book. Now, mind you, he was working other things at the same time, so, that's probably why it took so long. But one of the things that Matt did not really disclose is that, and a lot of people don't know this, is that there has already been a Critical Role source book that has come out by the guys at Green Ronin, called the Realm Book of Tolerae or something. Again, not a Critical Role person. I don't know the names of all the things, but it did great at Kick. It did great at Green Ronin. I don't remember if it was a Kickstarter or not, but it did great at Green Ronin and sold out all over the place. And a lot of the fans of that book for a long time have been yelling at Green Ronin, hey, when do we get another Critical Role book? Hey, when do we get another, Telluride, map set? Or when do we get more stuff? And Green Ronin's response was always, well, we don't have another product for you at this time. Which makes sense. If you don't have it, you can't sell it. And obviously you're not just going to slap a Critical Role sticker on something else and go, I know you haven't heard any of this and you haven't seen any of it, and it's been sitting on the clearance shelf for 6 months, but here you go, Critical Role. Instead, you have new monsters and new classes and new villains and new powers and all this other stuff. But by sending this information out that this book existed, people started to realize that although Matt had a really cool and profitable working relationship with Green Ronin, that Critical Role was working with them during that same time as his contract with his time with Green Ronin. I don't want to say contract because I don't want to get into legal snuffles, because I don't know where their legal thing was at, like what it said or whatever. What I do know is that if you were expected to be working on projects with one company, unless that company had put a no compete clause on there, that you should probably be creating your stuff for that company. You should be working under them, under that contract. Unless, of course, there's just so much stuff happening that you have to, you got to switch over to this, this other company, or work kind of double shift it sort of thing to make it happen. And I'm not going to call out who did it, but there was a thread that opened up on Facebook that basically ran Matt through the ringer for writing this book for a year and a half while he should have been doing work with Green Ronin. Again, I never saw his contract. I'm not privy to that information. For all I know, everything he did is on the up and up, and that's fine. Like, people work for other people all the time. It happens. Me personally, I do think that if you are supposed to be creating something for one company, that you should be mindful of where you put your time for another company, especially if that time is worth more. If it seems like you're padding your hours, or stalling on releases and things just specifically to get more money with this new company. But again, I don't know if any of that's true, and I don't want to push that narrative. I don't want to be like, man, Matt's a jerk, because Matt's a fine guy. And in the industry, unless a company tells you, hey, don't do this, don't work for somebody else, you are under a non-compete, and unless they can prove that stuff happened, that Matt didn't do anything wrong legally, again, morally maybe it was a little fishy to write 2/4 or 3/4 of a source book for a new company when you've got a company that you're currently under contract with that wants source books. But in our industry, the gaming industry is very, I don't want to say cutthroat, that's not the right word. It is very unforgiving. If you screw up and you misstep, or you sell the project to someone else or something along those lines, that there's a real good chance that's going to come back and haunt you. And if Matt did get this offer from WotC, hey, in 2019 or early 2020, we want to release a Critical Role book, and you get us started on that, then that's, I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of clout for his group, his creation. Where I have a problem, where I take that step back and go, man, never fails, fans ruin everything, is where people are drawing a line in the sand and are being like, there's this D&D purist community out there, a lot of Green Ronin fans that are like, we hate the fact that Matt took advantage of Green Ronin, and he's not putting out any more product with them, even though he was contracted to do so, or whatever. There's those people, and then on the other side of the coin, there are the critters, who are, Matt can do no wrong, Matt's our Jesus, and he can write whatever he wants for whoever he wants. He, as long as we get the books and we get the information, that it comes out on time, doesn't matter where it came from. And what that has done is it has turned a lot of fan pages into just sniping matches between people that are super pro, Critical Role, to people who are, on both ends. There's like people who are just sad that it wasn't the realm or subset of rules for the setting that they wanted, and then instead it was just, is this Critical Role thing. And then there's the other people who are caught into a place that they're like, we can't get enough Critical Role, and now Matt's working with WotC directly. What is that going to do to the show, to the product, to like where is this taking it? And the two sides, the two fandoms, they can't really see that they are asking for the same thing. They're asking for a complete product. They're asking for it to be cohesive, work with their system, and be fun, and support their Critical Role-ness while they're having a good time playing a game. And I guess, feelings are starting to get hurt. People are starting to get mad at one another because they're backing, those guys are all backing, Matt because, they're a bunch of, hashtag critters do no harm. And then there's the people who look at, the person who wrote the article about how it was wrong for Matt to lead Green Ronin on while he wrote this other book. And you look at those guys, and there's a combination of conspiracy theorists and writers and authors and people who have been taken advantage of by the system. People who are like, we love D&D, we want D&D to thrive, we just don't want it to end up being the cult of personality based around Critical Role. And to a certain degree, I can see their point. It makes me crazy that there are people out there that are refusing to be in games, to show up to game at stores, to partake in the D&D that we know and love and have known and loved for decades, because it's not a Critical Role style game. You don't do voices behind your game screen. You don't have physical props to pull out. That's honestly because the game doesn't need it. You might enjoy it, but remember that Critical Role is a show, and they have a production staff, and they give thousands of dollars to create that show. Your local DM probably bought some chips and dip and maybe some minis for that week's session. All right, I'm getting on a tirade. Going on, but so basically, the whole purpose behind this episode, I just looked down and saw it's getting close to the hour. The whole purpose of this episode is, we all have things that we love or like at one moment and love the next when we're defending it. We also have things out there that, for the most part, we never think about. It's never even in our brain until someone brings it up, and then suddenly that is the enemy. And I hate that that's even on the block of conversation right now. I hate it. That sort of thing. We have our strengths and weaknesses in conversation, and we have the things that we love and the things that we dislike, and the things that we sit on the middle of the road for the most part until something kind of gives it a shove one way or the other based off the conversation and happening at the time. And I think that we should collectively, as nerds and geeks and whatnot, we should try to be better. We should try to, we can state our opinion and say, I don't like X or I love X, without automatically hoping and assuming that there's this underwritten hidden code that says, if you're not with me, you're against me, or if you aren't sure, then you need to be with me, and that's why I'm saying these things. I think that the strength in fandom could be used in a really good way. It's just so many times it is wasted on angry decisions or petty revenge plots about, if my fandom's gonna hit the toilet, so is yours. I hate all sci-fi that isn't Doctor Who. Like that kind of thing. And who's your favorite Doctor? Oh, you like the new lady Doctor? She sucks. That's not true. Maybe I'm not a big fan of the screenplays that she's dealing with right now, but she's doing fine as an actress. Whatever. Maybe we should, just for this next week, before we see you again next week with the next awesome topic, which is going to be super cool. That maybe we should take a second, and before we condemn someone else for their view, or condemn someone else for their part of your view, whether it's an actor or a writer or your local DM or another player or whatever, maybe take a second and go, all right, hang on, all of these things that we love them because it's our opinion to love them. Just like it's their opinion to love them or hate them, it is our opinion to love or hate what we have in front of us. And unless you can put a definitive, like, period punctuation on something that says, oh, I hate this because it's wrong to like this because they use the word "the" too many times, or I don't like World War II movies, so therefore I don't want to like this one either. Whatever the case may be, try and figure out where on that scale, on that hyperbole scale, your opinion can hit, and maybe try to push it back just a little bit to make it more of a conversation and less of a condemnation, or more of a conversation and less of an evangelizing situation. Let's talk about things instead of argue about them. If you don't like something, don't throw a fit and immediately make a petition to try and change it. Maybe talk to some more people first and find out, maybe there's a reason for this. Maybe there's more stuff coming that we don't know. Or maybe it's taken from a perspective that you weren't at the time. Whatever happens is that we have got so much negativity and harshness in the world right now that we need to take a step and really try and rein ourselves in even just a little bit to try and push more of that positivity forward and less of that sort of ambivalent negative meh that can come up, or blaming a person for the things that they like. Unless that thing is legitimately hurting you, like they're like a bigot or a racist, or you're all somebody who's like legitimately pro-Nazi, then that is a belief that you can actually get behind. Going, no, you shouldn't have that. That's evil. Aside from that, let's just maybe take this week to take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt, and not try and villainize or vilify or victimize everything in front of us. But I think more than anything, we need to smile, enjoy ourselves, and play some games. Because I know I'm gonna. You should too. See you next week.